And thank you, Bill, for your time. You were at the Oregon and Penn State game. Unbelievable atmosphere. Oregon finds a way again. Golly, the stats with James Franklin. It's hard to beat highly ranked teams, but the frustration level continues, I guess.
Yeah, and you can feel that in the stadium, from the fans, and on a early third quarter punt in Oregon territory. And when they were down 17-3, I give them credit. They battled back. They made it a double overtime thriller. I really, David, really thought they were going to win this one. I really did. And James Franklin and Drew Aller both owned that afterward. It's a really tough spot to be in because they are a solid program. Obviously, they went to the semifinals last year, but these top 10 losses just continue to wear on the program. And it is strange and unusual. You would have thought they would have broke through and won a couple of these.
Bill, look, James Franklin has done a fantastic job there. Most every other school in the country would be thrilled to have a guy with his record. What is he doing wrong that he cannot get past this hump to beat these teams and win a title? Because they're right there. Just to use another football analogy, they're at the 5-yard line all the time, but cannot get in. Well,
I think the stat can be misleading in a couple areas because they have lost a lot of these games to Ohio State, and Ohio State had the better team. I've got to go back and look. I would like to know how many games they were underdogs in, right? Like you could use that as not a cop-out, but an explanation, because quite honestly, I can't pinpoint anything he did wrong Saturday. Oregon's a really good football team. The environment was unbelievable. Whiteouts are, in my opinion, like the best spectacle in college football. And I know some other places could be in that discussion, but the fact that they just can't beat these top 10 teams, 2-6 in whiteouts against top 10 teams, haven't beat a top 10 team since 2016. And that's what wears on you as a program. He's done a lot of good, but at some point, like he said, you have to win these games.
So, Bill, Dante Moore, how about that young man, huh? Wow. Huge performance from him in a battle of very interesting and very good quarterbacks. And you kind of touched on being impressed by Oregon, but your thoughts on the Ducks and Dante Moore leading the way for them as they move forward and what this win meant for Dan Lanning and company?
Well, I think the scary part is he's nowhere near a finished product. To go into Happy Valley and maintain composure, he took a shot on a 4th down early in the game where they didn't get that first down, and a lot of quarterbacks would get flustered by that environment. But so for Dante Moore, especially in the overtime, back-to-back touchdown drives, ran when he needed to, made the big plays when he needed to, and to me, he's right there in the mix with the Heisman Trophy in a wide open race if he continues to win in the Big Ten. It's another reminder that it's okay to sit and wait sometimes, and he's done that with the Ducks.
So where we saw Alabama, Georgia, there was the Ole Miss game with LSU, and there were others. What other game? You were there. You covered that one, obviously. But what was perhaps the other note or two that you came out of the weekend?
Well, one, Alabama, obviously, and then in a gotta-have-it game, breaking a 33-game winning streak for Georgia. And when we talk about them having a loss, I had to catch myself. They haven't lost an SEC play yet. That's important. The Florida State game was a non-conference game that's really forgivable if they go on a run in SEC play. And then you have to be impressed with Lane Kiffin, what's going on at Ole Miss, the way that they beat LSU. I thought LSU was going to win that game. Maybe don't follow my picks all the time. But what a really good Ole Miss football team. Trinidad Chambliss has gone from a Division II transfer from Ferris State to another Heisman contender, coming off 3 300-yard games the last 3 weeks. He's been incredible.
Bill, the trajectory of Clemson has dripped slowly over the last couple of years, and I think maybe we noticed why on Friday night. Tony Elliott finally has a group of players that can kind of run that system, and they haven't been the same since he left there on offense. And they had the big win on Friday night against FSU. I don't know what their staying power is with that defense, but they seem to have it finally going the way that Tony Elliott wants it to go.
Yeah, and most impressed with how they pushed Florida State around in the second half. I think there was a 12 or 13 play drive. I was sitting on the couch watching it like everybody else, and I'm like, man, they're kind of bullying Florida State a little bit. We haven't seen that in a while. And it's funny, I was talking to my son earlier in the day about the legendary upset with Tiki and Rondé back in 95, and they were able to duplicate that. It was an amazing environment. I thought the students might have got on the field a little too soon, but they got to be careful there. What's going to happen when we have one of those situations, which we had in BYU Arizona State last year, where they had to clear the field? What's going to happen when they penalize a student for getting on the field too soon? It's only a matter of time.
So, yeah, Bill, you're absolutely right. I mean, it almost feels like one of those things like we're going to have to let tragedy happen and then go, oh, man, we should have done something about that. And I just hope we avoid that kind of a scenario. We were looking at the top 25 a few seconds ago and before you joined us, and just a couple of teams that are there and stick out, but shouldn't be surprising at this point, are Vanderbilt and Indiana. Kind of the fun stories a year ago. We know Vandy's setting up for this big game with Alabama once again, but how much of a believer are you in these two teams? And just what do you think of the way they've really risen these past couple of seasons?
Well, I don't know. Here's what I'm trying to gauge with Diego Pavia this week. Is there a portion of college football that doesn't like him because of the JUCO transfer thing? And, he's outspoken. I would say some of the old guard may feel that way, but he is a fun story. He's playing fantastic football. He has a chance to do something that, the only time that a quarterback, and it was actually two quarterbacks, beat Alabama in back-to-back seasons in the Nick Saban era was Jarrett Lee and Jordan Jefferson at LSU. You have to go all the way back to Brandon Cox at Auburn to find a guy that beat Alabama 2 years in a row by himself, and he did it 3 years in a row. So what a tremendous opportunity for Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt in this game. And I heard you guys talking a little bit about Florida State and Miami in the last segment. I can't believe I'm saying this to you three. You may hang up on me, but I think Alabama Vanderbilt, I'm more excited to watch that one.
I don't blame you at all for that. No, that's absolutely a valid opinion. Absolutely.
I mean, FSU grad over here might
Paul
disagree.
feels differently.
Blood in the game.
I'm terrified of every time that plays. But I'll tell you this, Alabama Vanderbilt probably will be a more fun game to watch stylistically, because I think Florida State and Miami, classically, the styles get thrown out the window because they just essentially figure out ways to fight through football plays.
Oh, they're going to hit each other too. Yeah. And the unfortunate thing about Florida State losing, I tell this story all the time, is I grew up in Central Ohio, and Florida State Miami growing up was a game that you called your buddies over. You got in the basement. We all watched it every year. And we didn't have like a favorite team. I mean, it was Ohio State and Michigan where we're from, but Florida State Miami was a must-watch game, and I was really hoping that it would be another top 10 showdown to bring back a lot. It will still bring back those memories. I think Doak's going to be rocking, and it's not going to be an easy game for Miami at all to go down there. But a little stunned, like I'm sure I love your opinion, honestly, like what we watched with Florida State up front, especially on the defensive side, it wore out a little bit last Friday.
They did. And it's a perfect trap game scenario where you beat Alabama, you play a cupcake, a bye week, a cupcake again, and then you go to Virginia, who's better than you probably realized they were on a Friday night when everybody is just juiced up for you being there. And they're still in double overtime with a chance to win. So the arrow's still pointed up, but they got exposed a little bit on Friday night. And I wonder, because Virginia and Miami's styles are so different, how everybody kind of responds and adjusts to what happened. Because Chandler Morris, if he threw the ball more than 5 yards down the field, it got picked off. But if he just dinked and dunked, I mean, heck, it worked.
Yeah, they had a lot of under routes and a lot of he pulled the ball at the right time in the running game, made a lot of good decisions there. I'll tell you what, Deuce Robinson is amazing, though, on the other side. And I got to applaud the ACC for how they did that replay, because in real time, I thought he caught the touchdown. And now I know he bobbled it a couple times, and they literally broke it down by the millisecond. But I love that they brought us in the booth process. I mean, that way there's no conspiracy theories and those kind of things that we always joke about. I mean, I do it in the NFL every Sunday as a Packers fan. I said, I texted a buddy this morning and said, if the NFL does have script writers, last night was a beauty.
No question. The Big 12 is going to start using the audio of the booth reviews from the headquarters, but they won't include video, which makes it even better. Bill, Texas Tech's 11. Iowa State stayed at 14. You have BYU and Arizona State reappears in the last 3 or whatever rankings in the top 25. Does Tech just need to keep winning? Are they getting more notice than perhaps Iowa State because of the offseason? Because there's been a lot of publicity about them. For them to have a chance to move inside the top 10.
I'm most impressed with their defense. I know with Texas Tech, the story is always the offense, but Rodriguez on defense, a difference maker at linebacker. They're really good up front. That's what stood out in that Utah game. And I know that's a cliche. You got to be a good up front, but they were active. And I didn't expect them to win that Utah game. So for them to go out there and do that, and even with Baron Morton going out of the game, was even more impressive when your backup quarterback comes in and makes plays that he made. So I think Texas Tech, Iowa State, BYU's worth watching. Arizona State's probably got the best quarterback of the bunch. I think Sam Leavitt, he's just fun to watch. The way his mobility, the way he brought them back against TCU after a 17-0 hole in the first quarter. I thought the Horned Frogs were going to win that game. I was off last week. But, I even had I was one of the victims of the Fernando Mendoza mad dash for a safety at the end of the game. That also impacted me a little bit. So I have questions.
What are you talking about, Bill? What are you talking about?
Unbelievable.
How much did that hurt their total yards rushing?
I know. That's what I was wondering. If I'm like, there are other ways to do that. And, I'm just thinking in my head, what if he would have stumbled and the ball just came out or something?
Yeah.
Any of these things could have happened in that situation. But it was a fun weekend just the same. If you're worried about your picks against the spread, this isn't the season to worry about that. There's been so much craziness.
When we look at each weekend, almost after any what we call banger games or whatever, do we react too quickly and not enjoy the game itself and worry about what it means for the possibility of a college football playoff spot?
I think sometimes that's a fair point. And I do think I'll take the SEC, for example. It's become a little bit like the AFC because of all the wins and losses and, these great games. Like now we're kicking LSU out of the playoff and we're down on Georgia. But 2 weeks ago, we were trying to fire Kalen DeBoer. Vanderbilt and Missouri are undefeated. I think it's been that conference in particular embodies what you're talking about because there have been super swings. And I think there's a real possibility that the SEC champion will have 2 or 3 losses because they're just going to beat on each other over the next couple months. Even a game like Texas, Florida this weekend, that's not a gimme for the Longhorns. They're going to have to go there and play well to win in the swamp against that defense, a top 25 defense. And I think Texas, and I say this in one breath and then the other, I'll tell you, I think Texas and Alabama might be in the SEC championship game when we're all said and done. And I could see a Texas-Ohio State rematch down the line.
Bill, I'm going to make you a €100 check. Who's your guy at Arkansas?
I think they're going to go after Rhett Lashlee for sure. That's got to be one guy. I've read some tweets that, there's some reporting out there that Dan Mullen could be a guy. I didn't even think about that Saturday. He's a guy, but that's another one that makes sense. I look more at Dan Mullen for the track record at Mississippi State where they were at number 1 in the country at one point. He did a very good job there, and he could do a very good job at Arkansas. So those are the two. And then, we're always going to try to link Gus Malzahn to that job, but they've had other chances to hire him. So I think Rhett Lashlee and Dan Mullen are the 2 names to watch.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. I saw a note about in Dallas because of the fertile ground of what they have with SMU's booster base. Is it even better no matter if it's alma mater? And also harder to win maybe at Arkansas in the SEC than he can pick off some playoff spots and appearances at SMU.
I agree with that. And I think SMU and all these Texas schools, one of the things we talked about this with NIL, who's all in the top 15 right now? Texas A&M, Texas Tech. SMU made the playoff last season. Baylor, I think, still a solid program that could be the next school to do those kind of things. So in this environment, these Texas schools, with the recruiting base on top of it, it might be a better job, but you just can never rule out that the tug from the alma mater. You know what I mean? We've seen that so many times where they're able to come back to school, whether it works out or not.
Thank you, Bill. Good to have you on. We'll be back in touch. Thank you so much. Appreciate your perspective.
Hey, anytime, guys. This was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Bill Bender, Sporting News.